Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to All Things Avennia. This is, I guess you could consider this the last show of season one of All Things Avennia. This was the initial, uh, these are all the initial episodes that we planned out. We are restarting and doing another, I think another 9 episodes, starting in April, which we've already posted all of those. But this is going to be a fun one. So I am so happy to be joined by Chris Peterson, our winemaker, who's here going to be helping me out. And part of the reason is because music has been a really important thing for us in our lives, even personally, but also at the winery and as part of Avennia and what we've been doing. And we've, when we were thinking about Washington Wine Month, which again, we're celebrating March as Washington Wine Month, we wanted to do something a little different. So we decided to do a music and wine pairing episode. But specifically, we're going to be talking today about music groups and artists from Washington State, which is fascinating. There's actually a lot of artists that you might be surprised are actually born in Washington. I sure was surprised. But yeah, this is something that I don't know, Chris. If you want to talk about when did we start pairing albums with releases? Was that sort of a COVID thing, or had you been doing that or thinking about that earlier on?
Well, I had definitely been thinking about it. I have a lifelong love of music, from when our family used to listen to music in Oregon and really bond over that. And it's just been something that I've always been a student of listening to music and learning about music the same way you can learn about wine. It you can enjoy it without knowing everything about it, but the more you kind of look into things, the more interesting it becomes, and maybe the richer the experience is. So it was kind of a natural thing, but actually, yeah, physically, like pairing albums that I've been doing over the COVID is just kind of a pandemic thing that I thought was fun. It has all disclaimer. There's very little scientific basis to what the material we're about to cover, but it, I think it just kind of brings together these two things that I love learning about and kind of thinking about how they can interact.
And totally. And your background, because you said you listen to music, but you also worked in a record store for a while. What was that experience like?
Yeah, from the time after graduating high school, I was working at a local record store in Yakima, Washington, and and learning about just all this new music, but also old music. And then my first job when I moved over to the Seattle side of the mountains, um, I worked at another record store, or actually a CD store. By that time, we'd moved on to CDs, and just learned all about the classical section, and really got obsessed with jazz, especially. But also just the history of music is really interesting to me, as is the history of wine. So it's kind of a natural, uh, you know, thing to pair up with for me.
And as far as our back, because for those of you that know me, I went to school for music. I was a musician for most of my life. Still am a musician, but I studied singing and voice in college, and so I have a musical background. Marty Talker, who's our managing partner, played drums, still plays drums, has played for a long time, and is a huge fan of jazz and all kinds of music. There's just constantly music playing at the winery. I remember in Harvest, Chris was great because he would always make a punch down playlist, and there'd always be a theme. And we got pretty eclectic. I don't know, Chris, what was the theme in 17? Was it European avant-garde
Yeah, I
thing?
think that was a really interesting one. So every morning we come in at 7 a.m. before crushing fruit, and we have to punch down all the fermentations. So it could be 15, it could be 25 or 30. And it's really hard physical work. And you're doing that first thing in the morning. And you're tired from just working in harvest. And so I like to just make things even more uncomfortable by having themed punch down music. And I think in 2017, it was psychedelic music, but not from the US or the UK. And so we found some awesome stuff from the Scandinavian countries, Chile, Japan, Northern Africa has an amazing scene, and all this stuff. And so it's kind of fun. Um, but it's also, it just kind of fits in with the whole, uh, sometimes that hardship of getting up and punching down and breathing all that carbon dioxide in at 7 a.m. and might as well keep the music interesting too. But even throughout harvest, when we're bottling or when we're sorting fruit, maybe we're listening to something different, maybe something that the more classic rock maybe at that time. And I just always feel like there's an appropriate time for certain kinds of music, and I wouldn't think of listening to certain music on the back porch when we're having some olean in the summer.
Yeah,
I would I
yeah,
wouldn't I wouldn't do something really dark, and in the middle of winter when it's light for 8 hours a day here, we're not listening to a lot of light bright music. And so this kind of natural thing is, if you're drinking wine, where we think of pairing different food with it, so why not kind of do that with wine and music, where there's kind of that experience.
yeah. Well, and that's great. That's a good lead into what we're gonna do. So I did still prepare a slight presentation, but this is gonna be a more fun presentation because a lot of it's just gonna be music that we get to listen to together. So I'm gonna share my screen, and I get to share my screen now with sound. So make sure that you have your sound turned up. Hopefully, you already have your sound turned up so you can hear me, which is a good idea. But our idea, like, so when Chris and I talked about what we wanted to do, we thought it'd be fun to choose to pick all of our wines, not all of them, but some of our current wines, and then pair them with music, but specifically Washington bred, or based in Washington, or artists born in Washington, um, musicians. And so that's what we're doing here. And so, like he said, we're going to start out with Olean. By the way, side note, Chris and I are both drinking a little Olean right now. But we decided to reach into the library. This is actually a 2013 Olean. So for those of you that don't think white wines can age, this Sauvignon Blanc from 2013 is beautiful. I'm really, really happy with how this is tasting. I don't know about you, Chris.
Yeah, I figure we're working late. We should be able to raid the library, so.
So this is the idea. What I've done here is we'll present a wine. We'll talk on the back porch on a sunny day, and I think Olean is also pretty liked by a wide variety, or a wide range of people. And part of that is, I know Chardonnay drinkers who hate Sauvignon Blanc who end up liking this because there is kind of a richness to the wine. And I know people that don't like Chardonnay at all, and they don't like oaky wines at all, but they'll like the Olean even though it's barrel fermented, and it tends to please a lot of people. So we thought of a group called the Fleet Foxes. You might be familiar with Fleet Foxes. They're a little more popular than maybe some of the other ones on this list, at least this initial list. And this is, I'm going to play about a minute clip for you so you just get an idea of Fleet Foxes. Like, basically, think about bright harmonies. These guys use harmony throughout the whole thing. It's very easy to listen to. It's the kind of thing you want to listen to on the back porch on a sunny day. So yeah, I just wanted to like hang out on the back porch and listen to that. It's so easy, so just so nice and pleasant, like the Olean. So now we come to a new brand. So this is actually, if you're not familiar with with Avennia. We added a new label called Lydian. It's our second label, so it's an opportunity for us to be a little more selective with how we're blending the Avennia wines and making the Avennia wines even greater. But we get an opportunity to blend down into or decide which barrels, what barrels aren't necessarily Avennia barrels, but can go into something else that's still really good before we either decide to declassify it completely or sell it off or anything, but still make some really great wines. And so we had Lydian that was born in this. Now, Lydian, for those of you that don't know, it is a very music theory type term. Lydian it's a mode or it's a kind of scale of notes used in a lot of jazz music and music from all over. And when we decided to name this brand, because of Chris's background in music, my background, Marty, we had musical terms ended up being part of the mix. So we just like the sound of Lydian. So this wine's about music theory. It's about jazz. It's a super easy, it's an enjoyable wine, but deceptively complex. This is something that, like Chris was saying earlier, music and wine both have the ability to be enjoyable for those that don't want to dive deep. But if you do want to dig deep into the details, can get really interesting and really complex. And I honestly think this GSM punches way above its weight as far as how the wine tastes. And then also, I think as far as the normal pairing when we think of wine and food, GSMs in general and this type of blend is so versatile. It can go with a lot of different types of food. It's not too tannic, so you don't have to worry about certain things, and it can go with white meat, red meat, all the things. So when we decided to pair with this, we thought of a super versatile jazz pianist named Ryan Burns. Chris, why don't you talk a little bit about Ryan Burns and especially how music theory and Ryan Burns and Lydian kind of connect to what you're doing?
Yeah, Ryan, I've known for a long time. Actually, when I was talked about that first job at a CD store in South Center, I actually worked with Ryan, and he was just coming on the scene, learning how to play jazz. I think he was just had his first regular gig down in Pioneer Square with one of those old jazz musicians of that used to play back then in the early '90s. And recently we've touched base again. I mean, as we're about to see, he's done a live stream with us just a couple months ago. And after this, I actually, one of my pandemic hobbies has been to kind of pick up the piano again. And so I've been taking some online lessons with him. So that's been fun. But he just knows, I mean, it's like a level of, it's like you just took your first geometry class and then you accidentally walk into a calculus class. That's what some of these lessons feel like for these jazz guys who just know the ins and outs of every scale, note, chord, and they just have it at the tips of their fingertips, but they use it, and it's very arcane to try to learn it, but they use it to create this music that's very accessible and very enjoyable, very melodic, but it's deceptively simple sometimes, and they look like they're having such fun. And I spent an hour trying to play one of these chord progressions. So,
Yeah,
but this was a fun event that we did together. Yeah.
Totally. Chris showed me some of the worksheets he has with music theory on it. And even I almost minored in music theory, and I was just like, whoa, like jazz can get into a whole new place. Well, this is a cool, this is a cool performance. Avennia helped sponsored this live stream with Kirkland Performance Center or Performing Arts Center, which is local here. But Ryan, again, going back to that versatility, Ryan has played with everyone. He's played with Jimmy Page and Anna Nancy Wilson of Heart. Like, he's done all types of music. He composed music. I just read this. He composed music for a Food Network show with Bobby Flay. Like, he's played with Tacoma Symphony. So just an incredible musician. And we're going to just watch a little bit of his group that played back in January. that was that was good. I just like wanted to kind of dance that whole time. That was awesome. I kind of wish we found a song that was in Lydian mode, and I don't think that was in Lydian mode, but that's okay. That's okay. Next time. All right, next one. So the Justine. So this might I might need Chris to come in and explain some of this wine and sort of what leads him to the band that we're going to be featuring next. The one thing I'll say, this is a wild wine. It's a CDP style. You'll see that it's a Chateauneuf de Pop style wine, which Chris can talk about. But aromatically, to me, this is a wine that has so much going on. It pops and it bursts with floral and spice and fruit and earth and everything. And that sometimes you can get even wrapped up in how much is going on around your head. But Chris, talk a little bit more about this mysterious kind of wine, and then what made this your first love, this style, and then how it links up to the band we're talking about.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, when I was kind of first getting into wine, what I liked was, well, and it's kind of music too, is I liked the wines that were just a little bit weird, that didn't just taste like fruit, that didn't just taste like oak, that really kind of brought these different flavors. And coincidentally, the Rhone wines also, when you're young and trying to learn about wine, you could get a really, really good wine. You still can for not very much money, and so maybe a Côte de Rhone you could get for $10 or $12, and now and the Chateauneuf you could get for 30, 25. Now all those have at least doubled, but it still, I think, represents this great value. But there's this, with Justine, we're going to talk about Arnold later, which is also Rhone Valley varietal. You just get this complexity, and I wouldn't say weird, but just a little bit more interesting, not for everyone. And that's what I really liked about the wines that really connected with me. And that's what, as I learned about music and working at record stores, that's what I found really resonated with me too, is music that was a little bit, some people maybe found weird. Or I'd go to, my 20s, I'd start going to clubs in Seattle and listen to music, and just the hard rock bands that yelled and played loud guitars was fun, but that wasn't what interested me. What interested me was someone doing something new that I hadn't heard, that I could experience. And one of those was at the OK Hotel in Pioneer Square, and I saw them multiple times in the mid 90s and beyond. And even recently, I've seen this guy play saxophone in a number of different bands. And I think he's Seattle's own. I mean, born and bred, and still lives here. And he's a local legend. So you might find it a little weird, but I also think you might find something to really like in Critters Buggin'. The saxophonist is Skerrick, and there's not much you can explain about Skerrick.
Yeah, I was going to say, to watch. This is from a live performance in Poland, in Warsaw, at a jazz fest in 1999. that's for those of you that whose speakers were blown out. I'm sorry, not sorry.
Well, there's just a spirit of improvisation. I think sometimes that's what we have to do in wine is kind of take what's given to us each year and express it. Of course, we have 2 years to try to figure it out, and they're doing it on the spot. But I just love the unique voice. Like, hopefully, there's nothing that tastes exactly like Justine. It's its own thing, and there's definitely no one that sounds like Critters bugging.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's awesome. All right. Oh, what do we got next? All right, Graveira. So now we get into our Bordeaux style blend. This every year, this wine is just polished. It's smooth. I mean, it's the kind of wine for me. It just feels so good. It's like this warm kind of feel good wine that I have in the winter when it's cold. You know, it's just it's I don't know. It's sophisticated yet down to earth and just like really approachable. I think too. And I'm so glad Chris uh, mentioned this next band that we're going to pair with it because I had no idea that a man named Reggie Watts was a part of the band called Maktub. So Maktub, for those of you that don't know Reggie Watts, so if you see the afro here in the foreground, that's Mr. Reggie Watts, who's an incredible musician, comedian, artist, beatboxer. He does everything. If you've seen Pitch Perfect, which I'm unashamed to say is one of my favorite movies, because I like acapella music. He makes a little cameo in Pitch Perfect too, I believe. But he's also the one who leads the James Corden show, the Late Late Show. He leads the house band there. He's done a bunch of TED Talks too, where he like distorts people with sound and beatboxing and looping. He's just one of the most talented people you'll ever see. But this was a band, Maktub, that he was a part of back in the late '90s. So he was a student at Cornish College of the Arts, so a local art school, and then this group was formed in '96. And I don't know what else do you want to say about Maktub.
Yeah, they were just of a time back then, and I think the thing about Graveira is it's this blend and it's balanced, and it kind of has taken on its own personality, but it's also pays attention to its roots. I think there's definitely it harkens back to kind of some really nice Bordeaux blends, and I think you'll find when you listen to Maktub, it acknowledges its roots in Motown and some of the funk from the '70s. It's cool stuff.
For sure. All right, let's listen. It's basically, I mean, that's just nice. Oh, it feels like I just got hugged. It's like that. It's that kind of experience. That's cool. Okay, well now we get to Arnaud, which means Chris. I don't know about you, but I'm switching to red. We happened to raid the library twice, uh, and opened this bottle of 2014 Arnaud, which Chris is showing right there.
Yeah.
This one is just aged beautifully, by the way.
Just beginning to show those first signs of maturity.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So now we have this wine. So for those who don't, it's a single vineyard wine. This is all from Boucher Vineyard, a very special wine. This is one of the first wines that Chris conceived of when starting Avennia. He wanted to make a Boucher Vineyard Syrah, some super special grapes. This vineyard has got a whole lot of soul. I mean, this is a kind of wine that grabs your attention. There's a little funkiness too. Like there's definitely Boucher Syrah has this kind of meaty, funky kind of umami flavor to it, super long, complex. Um, and we put essential elements. I kind of want to describe that a bit because when I think of Arnaud, it's one vineyard, but it's very much like it's these two very distinct blocks. It's his two oldest blocks of grapes of Syrah grapes that he's planted. Very expressive, but very essential, like very discreet and important. And then you add in Chris and the winemaker, and you have these three like there's two blocks, this winemaker, these three essential elements and components. And so we thought, I don't know,
See where you're going with this.
oh man, you got to stretch it. This is I mean,
Yeah.
part of this game, which again, all of you are going to be playing in a minute here, is to find ways that wines and music link up. And this next group, which Chris turned me on to, is pretty incredible, called Delvon Lamar Organ Trio. Chris, what do you want to say about them before we press play?
Yeah, I found out about these guys relatively recently anyway, and you guys are going to love them. You probably haven't heard them unless you're really into looking for local music. They played on KEXP, the local, nonprofit radio station. I don't know, these guys are just sick. You can't resist these guys. I mean, I might have got a little weird with you on Critters Bugging, but these guys rock it.
Well, we'll play a little clip to just get an overall feel, but then I may or may not play a second clip. This dude, Jimmy James, just shredding the guitar. So let's take a listen. Okay, and now, if you will allow me to introduce you to Jimmy James, a guitarist here. We'll just hear a little bit of him. It's so hard to stop that because like there's no good place to stop it. But I definitely have felt that while drinking Arnaud before. So that's That's how I'll link that one up.
Yeah, that
You
was
should definitely check them out. Delvon Lamar, Delo 3, I don't know how they're known, but they've got some awesome stuff. Yeah, for sure.
absolutely.
Okay, we got one more wine to pair here, and then we're gonna turn the cameras around and let
That
you guys do it. So,
was a little foreshadowing, actually, Eli.
oh, it was.
Wait, yeah, wait for
Oh, all right. Okay,
it.
so oh yeah, that was a little foreshadowing.
Okay.
Hey, Christina, this is our flagship Bordeaux blend. It's our flagship Cabernet. Um, just iconic wine. This has got power, longevity. It stands the test of time. Multi-fat. I mean, this is just everything. Like, well, I guess when you think about if there was a legacy of Washington Cabernets, I'll put this in there for sure as one of the greatest cabs of all time. And I guess Chris, if you had to tell me what one of the greatest guitarists of all time was,
Well, yeah, yeah, you guys might not have heard of this guy, but he originally started uh, in a band called Jimmy James and the Blue Flames.
oh really? Wait, what?
Yeah, yeah, his original
I didn't know that.
Jimmy James and the Blue Flames, and so we have Jimmy James twice, but then he went by Jimi Hendrix, and came from Seattle and just took the world by storm. We just chose this because he was born in Seattle and grew up here, and we just think this is one of the icons of Seattle, and so with Sistina we wanted something that was like, we were gonna go grunge, we were gonna go Nirvana, but grunge just sounds so dirty, and I think our wines are cleaner than that, so we decided to go with something like this, which just has you know when we think of our wines, especially Sistina, in Arno too, but Sistina, it's like, what differentiates this? Is it better than this? Better than these other wines from Washington, or how is it different from these other wines from California? And the only thing I can say where it stands out is it's the only one of its kind. There's nothing like Sistina. There's nothing that uses these vineyards in this blend. We just have our own style, and every year Sistina is that wine, and you should recognize it as Sistina, hopefully, and go, yeah, here it is in this vintage, and it's different because of the vintage, but it's still Sistina. After 1 to 1.5 notes of Jimi Hendrix playing guitar, you can pick out that this is Jimi Hendrix, and I think that's what I really appreciate about his music.
Yeah, for sure. Oh man, iconic, right? Wow. Okay, well, so this game,
That's some great footage too. Wow.
yeah, this is from Stockholm, '69. About a year before he died. Lost way too early, way too young. And again, Chris, the whole fact that he's like playing a right-handed guitar upside down, and he could do it sort of on the fly. Like, I mean, if there's, the idea of like improvising on like with what you have, year to year, vintage to vintage. Like this guy understands that, I guess too.
Yeah, fellow left-hander.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, well then that's the first part of our program tonight. The second part's going to involve all of you lovely people. And what my hope is that we can to get some of you to chime in on some ideas. So, this is a list of some artists or some musicians that maybe you've heard of that are actually either born in Washington or formed in Washington, in the Seattle area. And I'm going to challenge you all to pick one of them. Oh, nope. Hang on. There we go. Pick one of them and then think about exactly what we were doing. So we were talking about, what about a wine would make us think of music? We're gonna reverse the scales here. You're gonna take one of these artists or these groups that you might be familiar with, and tell Chris and I something that makes you think of a wine. And this wine can be from anywhere in the world. If you're like, you know what, I don't know, I don't want to use one of these examples because I don't want to steal it from you. But if you're like, this group makes me think of something really dirty and funky because it's a funk band, and you want to do some like cool Northern Rhone Syrah that has a lot of funk and it's really dirty, that's what it's all about. So I get to open this up to you guys now.
Or there's really no rules. There's any rule. I mean, we're making this up. One of the points that I think Eli and I enjoyed talking about this is it's basically just sitting around and drinking wine and talking about music, which is
Yeah.
pretty good in its own right. And the rules we made up are arbitrary in a sense, in a
Yeah,
way.
exactly.
I mean, like whatever your reason is, if it works for you, I don't feel like, it's not like red wine and chocolate, which is just doesn't work. But there's different ways.
Yeah.
Use your, yeah.
So I don't know. This is hard because it's putting you on the spot. I don't know if you want to. Do you have Chris? Do you have one that you could like off the cuff just go ahead and pair a wine with one of these groups? I'm thinking. Okay, I have one. I got one. So I'm looking at Brandy Carlisle, who is just incredible musician, great voice. But like when I think of Brandy Carlisle, it's like obviously it's this like powerful, raw, like very natural voice. Like there's something that about her voice and her singing and her music that's very grounded, almost earthy, and and then yet she's this strong woman, this great female powerhouse. And so when I think of a wine that may like when I think of the wine, first thing I thought of was Ariana Okapinti. So this might be for those of you that don't know, but like this is a powerhouse winemaker in Sicily who makes some really cool wines. All of her wines they're actually biodynamic and organic. Um, she doesn't have the certifications because why go through all that the paperwork to do it. But her wines are so like grounded, earthy, and just incredible. And there's such a clear voice to her wines. I've always been a fan of her wines too. So Occhipinti, Ariana Occhipinti's wines from Sicily is what I think of with Brandy Carlisle. So
You might have to spell that out in the comment
yeah,
section there.
I'll post it afterwards. With especially Mary Margaret actually suggested doing a Spotify playlist or something with the all the songs we had. So I didn't know. So Tiffany said Death Cab for Cutie has a song called Champagne in a Paper Cup. Hey, there we go. So Champagne and Death Cab for Cutie. I'm all about that. Anyone else? Anyone else want to take a stab at something that might make you
Yeah,
think something?
we got the head and the heart here from an esteemed viewer.
Oh,
Yeah, drinking rosé around a campfire,
oh, totally.
and that's kind of not dissimilar from where we were going with the Fleet Foxes.
Mhm.
Just a
Like a feel good kind of thing.
great feel. Mm-hmm.
Head in the
Yeah.
heart. Reading about too, like they were from Ballard. It was like it's a bunch of musicians in the Ballard neighborhood in Seattle, um, and they just wanted to make music. And I guess the whole naming of the head and the heart. The head was because they knew their brain and their head told them they should get real jobs, but the heart told them they wanted to just play music. So, ooh, we got Robin's suggesting Judy Collins, Pinot Noir, Amazing Grace. Ooh, okay. I like that. Do you want to share like what made you think of that? Maybe? Or is this a Mark and Robin collaboration or What made you think? Because Judy
Yes,
Collins is incredible.
she's the only one we really knew, but
That's
we just listened to Amazing Grace and it was smooth and nice, and that's why I thought of Pinot Noir.
I love that.
And Pinot Noir at its best can be kind of ethereal, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And she has a beautiful rendition of Amazing Grace.
Yeah, I want to listen to that. That sounds good. That sounds great.
Bing Crosby, you could just go, you know, Robert Mondavi, Reserve Cab.
Yeah,
Just
for sure.
A Napa classic.
Yep, very classic. A little smoky. Like I feel like I'm in a smoky jazz club drinking Robert Mondavi.
That's right.
Bing Crosby. Mary Margaret has Foo Fighters, a big Zinfandel with some power. Oh yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Dave Grohl, classic.
Okay, my question is, any of your wines go with good classical music?
I mean, I'm glad you asked. So, one of the other projects I did recently was I actually paired our wines with opera music. So, and this is something, because my wife's an opera singer and sings with Seattle Opera, and we actually did an event with Seattle Opera where I paired our wines with arias sung, and then some local opera singers sang these arias, and we did this whole video thing, and it was all for the Seattle Opera donors to enjoy. So yeah, because I have more of a classical music background than pop music or jazz or folk or all of those things, and so I'm constantly thinking of classical music. I think, well, let's see, what the Olean, when I paired the Olean, I was thinking of bright, nervy, like very like powerful acidity and almost like this effervescence, because it's not a bubbly wine, but it has so much brightness. And I paired it with the Queen of the Nights from Die Zauberflöte, from the Magic Flutes, who is just this coloratura soprano, super bright singing, powerful. And then Olean is actually, the name is after a great aunt or someone from Chris' family way back in Norway. So it's this female character who's sort of a matriarch like kind of character. So yeah, I've paired our wines with more classical music before too.
Yeah, maybe you could go with a Haydn string quartet or like Beethoven Razumovsky quartets.
Yeah. Oh, nice. See, this is the thing. I went to school for classical music, and Chris still knows more about classical music than I. Oh, here's another chat here. I want to pair 19 Crimes Scratch Face wine with Sir Mix-a-Lot. All right, that's good. Oh, that's funny.
Maybe with Arnaud, you could go Dvorak, like earthy from his country. It's not our country. Yeah. You could do our country, but Dvorak later string quartets or
oh yeah, one
of the symphonies.
I mean, New World Symphony too. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
No, that's exactly. I mean, what kind of just on a lark during the pandemic. Marty and I would do these videos during the release, and the first time I think I surprised him, and just like showed him records and like, here's the match for today, and I tried to mix up the themes. And today's theme is Washington, but a future theme could absolutely be classical. I think
totally
that would be totally fun.
That'd be really fun. Yeah. Any excuse to geek out on music, I'll enjoy it. So.
Exactly. And Eli and I both would come up with totally different music ones because I don't know very much about vocal classical music, but I have definitely some appreciation for the instrumental stuff.
For sure. Hey, Chris, while we wait, if anyone else wants to chime in, you can use the chat box, absolutely. But Chris, what other? Because as we were pairing our wines with Washington music, there was a bunch of bands and other groups that we wanted to use or we wanted to pair with that we thought people should know about, but it didn't really fit, or we just ran out of wines or ran out of options. What are some other groups that you felt pretty strongly about introducing to the group or having people know about? I know we had talked about the Sonics.
The first one I thought of, was the Sonics. During the whole early rock and roll British invasion time, you had the Beatles, of course, you had the Rolling Stones, and you had, all these many bands. Well, Seattle had the Sonics, I think, before the basketball team.
That's
And so they recorded, you know, maybe 64, 65, 66, and they're really just a garage rock quartet, and pretty raw, pretty cool stuff. I don't know, Eli, if you can find anything. There's not as much footage of them,
oh,
but they became pretty legendary
yeah.
around locally. And I think the Kingsmen are from around here too, aren't they? Louis. Um, yeah. One thing I thought of going back to the classical is using the Seattle Symphony, and you know, I think that's pretty cool. The jazz. The thing is, you know, my one of my big loves is jazz music, and back in back a few years ago, I used to go to a lot of local jazz concerts. I still do, and you know, we've featured the John Seaman Quartet on our events when we used to have them, and even a couple live videos, and that's been great. But we do have some pretty singular jazz or kind of jazz like uh, figures here. One is Bill Frisell, who, yeah, Mary Margaret knows, and he's a guitarist and plays, you know, a lot of jazz, but just really eclectic, different stuff too. We were looking through albums, we were trying to come up with stuff to play, and there's just so much. And then the other, Wayne Horvitz, a little more, slightly more avant-garde, but not too bad. He actually owns probably the best jazz club locally down in Columbia City right now, the Royal Room. And he plays piano, but he's also kind of this father figure for this whole scene down there, and helping promote and keep modern contemporary music going in Seattle, especially now when it's so important. Uh, but there's been some great jazz players through the years. There's a couple classic jazz guys that are known from being around here. Maybe, you know, we can write those down as part of the link, the Spotify links, maybe, or something. But
Yeah.
Julian Priester is one of them that comes to mind. Recorded since the '60s, plays trombone. I think he's still alive. He's probably in his 80s now. But he taught at Cornish for years and years, and he's a pretty important figure. Played in like some pretty important bands back in the day, like Sun Ra. Yeah.
Mm, nice. I did find the Sonics. If we wanted to just have a little taste of this original, you know. Again, if those of you your speakers were blown out, I'm sorry about that. And
That's pretty great. Those guys were ahead of their time, you know. I mean, that sounds like stuff from the late '60s, early '70s.
yeah,
I wish one of our cohorts and coming up with some of these lists is a guy I used to work with. He's now a club member, but I used to work with him at the CD store, and he's from the Detroit area. And there's a group from Detroit called the MC5. There's another one called the Stooges, and these guys were 3 years before that, you know, and straight out of Seattle.
huh? That's cool. Mary Margaret in the chat just said Bill Frisell has an amazing version of Aaron Copland's Billy the Kid Suite. What? That's cool. That's a fun orchestral piece too. That I'm familiar with the Aaron Copland, but that's really fun. Bill Frisell. Oh, and Robin says if Portland was in Washington State, we'd suggest Pink Martini. Yeah, for sure. Pink. I
Yeah.
always want to drink wine when I'm listening to Pink Martini. That's a good call.
There's your rosé or champagne.
Yeah, or rosé champagne even. Yeah.
Or rosé champagne. Always rosé champagne is okay.
Always rosé champagne. You can never go wrong. Oh, that's fun. Well, if it's all right with you, I mean, we're almost at an hour here. This has been so fun. This is a completely different kind of all things Avennia than we've done before. But obviously I love music. Chris, we just love talking about music too. So this has been really cool. Um, unless any of you have any other last minute pairings, I think we'll just wrap things up. And I'll say we'll see you next week. Next week we're going to be doing wine fraud again. So this is the sour grapes. If you get a chance to watch the documentary Sour Grapes, we're going to be talking about that a little bit and just about wine fraud in general. It's April Fool's Day next Thursday, so we thought why not talk about some foolish wine stories. But anyway, that's next week. Chris, thank you so much for joining and for doing this. This was super fun.
Yeah,
me.
this was a blast. It was a blast to talk about it and prepare for it. And, you know, wine's serious. You can study it and learn it and whatever. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's just fun to
enjoy
fun
it.
to drink it and talk about the rest of our lives. Yeah. And music is a big part of that for both of us, you know. So
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you all so much. If you wanted to say goodbye and unmute real quick, I always love hearing you. And we'll see you around next time. And I hope you all well.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
guys.
Thank
thanks,
you.
guys.
That was
Thank
amazing.
It was great.
Awesome music.
Thanks. Bye.